August 1944. The fields around Verrières Ridge were once again alive with the thunder of Allied guns. Operation Totalize had begun, and with it came the roar of Canadian armor and the metallic heartbeat of the advance toward Falaise. Yet beneath every step of every tank track lay the ghosts of July. The men of the Black Watch who had never returned. Captain Mac Taylor, now listed as missing in action, was last seen leading his section through a curtain of smoke near Fontenay-le-Marmion. Months later, his body would be recovered near a destroyed Panther tank. The Germans had buried him with care, a gesture rarely extended in that brutal summer, and left a wooden cross marked Ein tapferer Fiend, a brave enemy. That inscription would echo through the regiment's memory for decades. The surviving Highlanders were folded into new formations. Reinforcements from Montreal and Ottawa arrived. Fresh faces, untested voices, staring silently at the photos of those who came before them. Sergeant Don Fraser, one of the few veterans from July, gathered them around a map table. His voice was low but steady. This isn't about revenge. It's about finishing what they started. By then, word of the Black Watch's stand had spread through the Allied ranks. In British canteens, soldiers whispered that the Canadians held Verrières longer than sanity allowed. American officers studying the operation called it a textbook lesson in courage under impossible fire. Even German intelligence reports noted that Canadian infantry displayed a disregard for death unusual even among the English-speaking units. But among the Highlanders, there was no talk of glory, only duty. When the Falaise pocket began to close, the reformed Black Watch pushed through the ruins of Saint-André-sur-Orne and Saint-Thierry-Martin, fighting among shattered hedgerows and abandoned half-tracks. They met resistance from remnants of 12th SS Panzer, the same division that had decimated them weeks before. Now, the tables turned. Canadian artillery screamed overhead, and typhoons prowled the sky, their rockets tearing into fleeing German columns. Lieutenant Campbell, now recovered from his wounds, stood atop a slope overlooking the valley. "That's for Mac," he whispered, watching the black smoke rise. By August 21st, the German 7th Army was trapped and broken. Thousands of vehicles smoldered across the Falaise Gap, and the road to Paris lay open. In the chaos of retreat, some SS prisoners recognized the tartan flashes on their captors' sleeves. One young German muttered, "Schwarze Wache," the Black Watch. For the Canadians, the name had become both a badge of pride and a wound that never closed. When the war finally ended in 1945, the regiment returned home, diminished but unbroken. In Montreal, the parade down Bleury Street was lined with families waving flags and photographs. Yet behind every cheer was a space. A name not shouted, a face not seen. Major Tate, now commanding officer, stood at attention as the band played "Scotland the Brave." His voice caught when he spoke. The Germans learned too late who they were facing at Verrières. They thought they were fighting soldiers. They were fighting men who carried the weight of a nation. Today, the Black Watch's colors bear the battle honor Verrières Ridge, stitched in crimson thread. It is a single line on a long list of victories. But for those who know its story, it represents more than a battlefield. It is a memorial in fabric, a whisper of every name lost in those July fields. If you walk there now, the wind still moves through the wheat as it did in 1944. Farmers plow around shallow depressions that once were shell holes. Every spring, poppies bloom where the Highlanders fell, a red that will never fade. And if you stand in that quiet place and listen closely, you might still hear it. The faint echo of bagpipes beneath the thunder of distant guns. The heartbeat of Canada's Black Watch marching into history. The morning after the slaughter, the fields south of Caen lay eerily quiet. Smoke coiled lazily over craters, and the cries of wounded men drifted between hedgerows. Medics moved like ghosts, their stretchers sinking into the churned mud, where hours before, the Black Watch of Canada had fought its way into legend. Lieutenant Alex Campbell sat slumped against a burned-out Sherman tank, his ears still ringing. He had seen his platoon, once 36 strong, reduced to 7. "They told us Verrières would be the key to breaking the line," he muttered. "They never said the line would fight back this hard." From a German forward command post on the ridge, SS Sturmbannführer Kurt Meyer of the 12th SS Panzer Division observed the Canadian movements through field glasses. "Die Schotten," he said quietly. "The Scots. They fight like devils." He had faced the Americans and the British, but the relentless, organized aggression of the Canadians unnerved even him. The Black Watch had come within sight of May-sur-Orne before being cut down by overlapping machine gun nests and precise artillery fire. When their radios failed, they charged by instinct and courage alone, wave after wave of infantry disappearing into the smoke. Some platoons were wiped out to the last man, yet their advance forced the SS to call in reinforcements, buying precious hours for other Canadian units regrouping north of Caen. Major Stuart Tate, commanding what was left of the battalion, walked the makeshift perimeter. "We were supposed to take the ridge," he told a wounded private. "And by God, we held it long enough to make them bleed for it." The South Saskatchewan Regiment and Royal Hamilton Light Infantry would later push through the same killing fields. When they arrived, they found the Black Watches dead, lined across the wheat, rifles still clutched, some kneeling as if in prayer. A British war correspondent wrote, "The Highlanders advanced into a storm of steel and never came back." Yet they never truly fell back either. In the coming days, Verrières Ridge would be struck again and again. Operation Totalize, Operation Tractable. But none would forget the price paid on that first morning. The Black Watch had taken the full weight of German armor, and their sacrifice exposed the enemy's positions for future assaults. As dusk fell over Normandy, a chaplain moved among the scattered survivors. He read softly from the Book of Psalms, his voice nearly drowned by distant artillery. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Men removed their helmets. Some wept silently. Others just stared at the ridge glowing under German flares. In Ottawa, the casualty lists began to arrive. Families in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver received telegrams marked, "Regret to inform you." In one Montreal home, a mother whispered, "He was with the Black Watch." The neighbor nodded in silence. Everyone knew what that meant. The Germans had won the ground that day, but they lost something else: the illusion that the Canadians were a secondary force. From that day on, SS commanders ordered extra reconnaissance whenever they suspected a Highland regiment in their sector. The Black Watch had earned their grim respect the hardest way possible. By early August, the survivors of the regiment, barely a company's worth of men, were pulled back to reform. A few of them, still bandaged, volunteered to return to the line. When asked why, one replied, "Because the ridge still remembers us." The Black Watch would fight again, in the closing of the Falaise pocket, in the Scheldt, and all the way into Germany. But no battle would ever haunt them like Verrières. For those who lived, it was not just a defeat, it was a transformation. The moment when Canada's quiet sons became the nightmare of the Waffen-SS. July 25th, 1944. The air over Normandy hung heavy with gun smoke and the smell of churned earth. In the gray dawn, men of the Royal Highland Regiment of Canada, the Black Watch, crouched behind hedgerows near the small village of May-sur-Orne. Their kilts traded for battle dress, but their spirit unmistakably Highland. Private Alan McPherson adjusted his webbing and whispered, "They say the road to Falaise starts here." Beside him, Sergeant Don Fraser, a veteran from Sicily, checked his Sten gun and muttered, "Aye, if we live long enough to walk it." Operation Spring was underway. The objective: break through the German defenses south of Caen. and seize the high ground around Verrières Ridge. It was a vital push. Control of those ridges would open the path for the Allies to encircle the German 7th Army. But unknown to the Canadians, the ridges ahead were crawling with some of the most battle-hardened troops in Europe. SS Panzer divisions, including the 12th SS Hitlerjugend and 1st SS Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler. Their tanks were dug in, their artillery zeroed, their MG-42s waiting. At 0330 hours, the preliminary barrage began. The ground shook like a living thing as shells screamed overhead. The men rose into the mist. The order was given. Advance. The Black Watch moved forward through shattered wheat fields, stepping over the wrecks of earlier assaults. A company to the left faltered. Communication lines snapped under German counterfire. Still, the Highlanders pressed on. The rhythm of boots on soil, the crack of rifles, the deafening rip of machine guns. Normandy's fields became a furnace. Captain J.M. Mac Taylor, leading C Company, shouted above the chaos, "Keep moving. Don't stop till the orchard." He barely finished before mortar fire landed behind him, shredding the rear ranks. Men hit the ground, some screaming for medics, others too silent to move. The Germans, initially believing they were facing another light probing attack, suddenly realized the ferocity of the assault. Through binoculars, an SS officer barked into his field radio. "Kanadier, schwarze Uniformen, sie kommen weiter." Canadians, black uniforms, they keep coming. By mid-morning, the field outside Fontenay-le-Marmion was littered with bodies. The Black Watch had advanced farther than any unit in the attack, but at a terrible cost. Out of 325 men who began the push, fewer than 50 would return unscathed by the day's end. Still, they did not break. Their persistence unnerved the Germans. Survivors recalled later that the Canadians fought like ghosts that refused to die. As the afternoon sun burned through the haze, the Black Watch dug in under relentless artillery. Lieutenant Alex Campbell scanned the horizon and murmured, "If they want this ridge, they'll have to bury us to take it." In a sense, that's exactly what happened.